Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and this is going to be my December wrap-up of 2019. So you guys know I have been working on a couple of challenges this month. It was the third month of my Stackmas challenge, and it was also the month that we did the annual holiday book bingo hosted by Sarah from Steeped in Books. She graciously invited me to co-host this year, and I had a wonderful time. I did forget on the last day of the month to go back and make sure that I had covered all the challenges, and today as I was getting ready for this video I realized that I did not complete one of the 9 challenges on the 9-space bingo card. So I did not get a blackout as I had hoped and planned, but anyway, I did read 28 books in the month of December, so somewhere in amongst all of that, we'll just have to not worry about it. Anyway, I did do a mid-month wrap-up. I did it in 3 parts. In one of the videos, I gave you an update on my Stackmas tree, and in another video, I talked about the bingo, and then in the third video, I talked about everything else. It was kind of a mid-month wrap-up. So at that point, I had finished 11 and then 12 books by the time I did that third video. So I'm not going to tell you too much about those books. I'm just going to briefly run through those. And so in this video, I'll focus mainly on the rest of the books that I finished throughout the month of December, and also tell you a few of my stats. So why don't we do that first? So for the month, I read a total of 28 books. This month, 11 of the books were print books, and 17 of them were audio. Even though there's still more audio than print, 11 is quite a bit for me for print books. And actually, only one of those books was carried over from the month of November. So I started and finished a total of 10 print books in the month of December. Now, not all of them were long books. In fact, several of them were very short, which is the only way I could have done that. And then there was one that was an ebook, but since I don't have my Kindle right now, I pulled it up on the computer and I was able to listen to it on the text-to-voice feature. So it was a little bit robotic, but it's okay. That way I was able to listen to it while I worked on this monster of a jigsaw puzzle that we are currently working right now. So one of the challenges on the bingo was to read something traditional. And so what I said I was going to do is listen to an audiobook while working a jigsaw puzzle. Because traditionally, I always work at least one jigsaw puzzle during the week between Christmas and New Year. So in later years, my husband and Katie have gotten involved. We have even had a jigsaw puzzle tournament where we each did our own. This year, we got a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle from my mother-in-law, which we did most of on Christmas night and then finished it up on the morning after Christmas. And as you can see, the picture are bookshelves with cats, and the books on the shelves are cat-related. So it was a really fun puzzle, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, the puzzle we're working on right now is an absolute monster. My sister sent it to us, and it arrived the day after Christmas, and we started it that night, and I don't even know if Katie has worked on it since that first night, because it's tempting just to give up on it. It's this Coca-Cola puzzle, 2,000 pieces. It's bigger than our dining table, so I had to cut a piece of cardboard to accommodate it that now sits on the dining table. And it wouldn't be so bad if the pieces were regular shapes, you know, like your standard jigsaw puzzle piece. They're not. They're every size and shape under the sun, and there are many more pieces with straight edges than there are border pieces, which makes it next to impossible to put the border together first, because you don't know which pieces are border and which ones are not. So anyway, my sister was apologizing because she sent us such a hard puzzle. I said, oh, no, it's fine. I love a challenging jigsaw puzzle. But I will tell you, this is probably the hardest jigsaw puzzle that I have ever participated in working on. So anyway, I did get that challenge done to listen to an audiobook while working on a puzzle. And in fact, I have continued on and listened to several audiobooks since we've been working on this puzzle. But it's fine. It's totally fun. And now, you know, New Year's is over, and at some point we're going to have to get it done. And it's tempting to work on it more than I should, but you know, the holidays are over now and we've got to get on with life. So we're going to probably move it, the big piece of cardboard, to a card table, which will sit in the living room, and we'll just work on it in the evenings as we have time. And I don't know how long it's going to take us to get that puzzle done. Anyway, going back now, I didn't mean for this video to be about puzzles, although that has been what has consumed a good bit of my time over the holidays. So let's get back to the books. So for the month of December, I finished 28 books, 11 in print, 17 on audio, and 8 of those were nonfiction, and 5 of them were cozy mysteries, and then one more mystery that probably wouldn't be considered cozy. It was a Hercule Poirot mystery by Agatha Christie. I finished 7 historical books. One of those was kind of a reimagining of real events, but it would probably still count as fiction. I read 3 fantasy books. I read 5 that were contemporary fiction. And of the books that I finished, 9 of them had a Christmas theme, and 4 others had either a theme that was a different holiday, or it was set during a holiday time. And then 17 of the books that I finished were part of series, so a big majority. So all but 10 were part of series, and since 8 of them were nonfiction, that means there were only 2 other fiction books that I read that were not part of series. One of those was a bind-up of 3 novellas, and the other one was a historical fiction standalone. And then I finished or caught up with 4 different series. 2 of them were 2 cozy mystery series where I listened to both books in the series during the month and got them done. And then there were 2 other trilogies that were not mysteries that I finished by listening to or reading the 3rd book in each of those trilogies. And of the 28 books that I finished, 7 of them were on the Stackmas tree, and then another 7 of them were Christmas themed books that I indicated with an ornament sticker on the edge of the tree. I originally said it was going to be a light sticker, but I couldn't find stickers of Christmas lights close at hand, and so I used ornaments. And then 2 Christmas themed books that were actually part of the stacks that I did read. And then everything else down here indicates all of the other books that didn't fit somewhere on the tree. So altogether, for the 3 months that I did this Stackmas challenge, which was October, November, and December, I read a total of 66 books. 26 are on the tree. They are in a green space on the tree. I did not get to 10 of them. And then the little yellow papers on the edges are the Christmas themed books that were not a part of the tree. And then right under the tree I have all my nonfiction books that I read during this 3-month period. They are represented by gifts under the tree. Each of the book covers and the little papers that tell the title are stuck to gift packages. You just can't really tell anymore because they're covered up. And then my middle grade books are represented by toys. And then my inspirational fiction is represented by a candle. And then over here I have a big container of cookies on a sticker, and under that is everything else that didn't fit either on the tree or in one of the other categories. So that is my Stackmas tree. I am going to keep working on reading these other books that are not covered in, and also the base of the tree. This was a Christmas themed book in a series that I was caught up to the Christmas book. So I'm still going to go ahead and try to read as many of these as I can during January. You can see that I did skip a little bit here and here because I really wanted to read The Christmas Scrapbook by Philip Gulley, which is book 5.5 in the Harmony series, so I can go back now and read books 4 and 5. And then I really wanted to read Village Christmas by Miss Reed, which is book 6 in the Fair Acre series, and so I skipped over books 4 and 5 in order to get to that. And then this book represents book 3 in the Thrush Green series, which I just stuck on there just to kind of even out the tree. I didn't really have much hope of getting to that one anyway, but you know, it balanced out the tree. And then this is the Christmas book in a series that I've been reading for a while, so I made that the base. So we'll see how long it takes me to get to these. I may not get to finish all 10 of the books left on the tree in January because I've got some book club books to read, and I need to get back and finish those last 3 Sunshine State books that I didn't get done during last calendar year before March, because sometime in March will be the book bowl. And so I have several books that I need to read. Plus I have a little tiny readathon that I'll be announcing very soon. And after that, a very large readathon that will be coming up in a couple of months, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. And then after that, another smaller one. So there's lots of stuff coming up in the next few months. But in January, I mainly want to focus on book club, Sunshine State, and finishing those books that I didn't get done in the month of December. So I may or may not do a January TBR. I don't know. We'll see. You kind of already know. I'm just going to kind of do some catching up. So let me quickly run through the first 12 books that I finished during the month, and then I'll tell you just a little bit more about the other 16 when I get to them. The very first book I finished in the month was actually a November book, so I talked about it already in my November wrap-up. It's The 12 Teas of Friendship by Emily Barnes and illustrated by Susan Rios. This is a beautiful book. It has theme ideas for a tea party for every month. I also finished 5 cozy mysteries during the first part of the month. All were on audio. Most of them I read because they were picks for the Book One Cozies Club, which is hosted by Di on our Mystery Madness Goodreads group. So one of the series that I read both of is by G.A. McKevitt. The first book is Murder in Her Stocking, and this was this year's pick for the Book One Cozies Club. So because they were both on Hoopla on audio and I had an extra borrow, I went ahead and listened to the second book, which is more of a Halloween themed book, but oh well. It is called Murder in the Corn Maze. The other series that I started and caught up with is by Jacqueline Frost. Last year's pick for this month for the Book One Cozies Club was The 12 Sleighs of Christmas. And so this year's bonus pick was to read the second book in that series, 'Twas the Knife Before Christmas. Another Christmas-themed murder that I read was for my library book clubs. It was Hercule Poirot's Christmas by Agatha Christie. This is book 20 in the Poirot series, and I thought it was really good. I did not know who the murderer was going to be, and I was definitely surprised. My husband and I also watched Hercule Poirot's Christmas on DVD. I checked this out from the library. This is part of the David Suchet series. I haven't watched any of this series before, and I did really enjoy it, so I may watch some more of them. I'm pretty sure our library has most of them available. And then the other cozy mystery that I listened to during the first half of the month is book 4 in the Coffee House mystery series by Cleo Coyle called Murder Most Frothy. I purchased a daily deal from Audible for $1.99 during the month, and I listened to that. It was called Do Less by Kate Northrup. It wasn't my favorite. My philosophies don't necessarily line up really with the authors, but I always enjoy listening to self-help books that have anything to do with time management or organization or motivational things like that. So, you know, it's always good to expand my horizons. One of my favorite books of the month was A Land Remembered by Patrick Smith. I listened to that for my book club that meets outside the public library, and it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And I finished a trilogy by listening to The Lightkeeper's Ball by Colleen Coble. This is a romantic suspense Christian series that I thought was really good. It's historical, and I thoroughly enjoyed all 3 of them. The first 2 are on the Audible Escape package, and I purchased this one because I had returned a couple of books, and this was on my wish list, and I decided just to go ahead and get it, and I'm really glad I did. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole trilogy. And I already mentioned that I listened to Green Witch by Susan Cooper. This is the 3rd book in the Dark is Rising sequence by Susan Cooper. It has some ties to Arthurian legends. It's a fantasy book set in England. The whole series has 5 books, and the 4th book, called The Grey King, is a Newbery winner, which I listened to on audio several years ago, and even though I kind of understood what was going on, I really felt like I was missing something. And then I found out that it was the 4th book in the series. So over the last couple of years, I've gone back and started from the beginning. The first book, called Oversea Under Stone, we meet a group of children who are on holiday with some relatives, and they get pulled into this light versus dark quest. It was kind of hard to get into, but once I listened to it a couple of times, I sort of began to understand what was going on. Then the second book, which is called The Dark is Rising, is about Will Stanton, who was born the 7th son of a 7th son. And when he reaches a certain birthday, he discovers that he was born to be someone special in history. He's the last of the old ones, and the old ones are the group that are fighting against the dark. So that book is about Will learning what his job is, what his quest is going to be. And then in book 3, The Green Witch, Will joins the kids we met in the first book for a quest to retrieve something that was lost and so they go on a quest to retrieve it from the Green Witch. So then I did finally get book 4 read. I read this one in print, even though I could have listened to it on audio on Scribd. The reason I read it in print was because I really wanted to get to book 5 this month, and I was afraid if I listened to both of these on Scribd, then Scribd would cut me off and I wouldn't get to the third one. So I read this in print. I got done with it in time to listen to the 5th book, but I was listening to other stuff, and I started it on New Year's Eve, and I had to go to work, and I just didn't have time to finish it. And I was trying to go ahead and just listen to it fast so that I could still count it, and then I would have gone back and listened to it again the next day. But I didn't want that to be the first book of the year that I read, and so I just gave up on it. I was trying to get them done for a challenge that was issued on the Newberry Goodreads group, which was a challenge to read the entire series of several different Newberry winners, and you could pick and choose which challenges you wanted to do, and I had taken the challenge to do this series, so I didn't quite finish that challenge, but it's okay. I now know I can listen to the 5th book on Scribd this month if I want, or whenever, and finish that series, and it's pretty good. It is a middle grade series, but it's kind of hard to get into. It's a little bit wordy, and it's several years old, and I don't know a lot about the setting, where they are, but still it's entertaining. And because I have a goal to read all the Newbery winners, it made a lot of sense to go ahead and read the series that is centered around this book, The Grey King. So anyway, as I was reading this, I did remember, it started to come back to me, a lot of it from before when I had listened to it on audio. But like I said, I understood the backstory of Will Stanton and his quest to defeat the Grey King, so it made a lot more sense this time around. So the 12th book I finished right as I was doing my mid-month wrap-up is Storm in the Village by Miss Reed. This was a delightful story about the Fairacre community. In this book, what the storm is about is that a company wants to come in and take over a 100-acre field that belongs to one of the residents of Fairacre, and they want to make a housing development there to house people who work at the atomic plant. And the atomic plant is several miles away from this village, but apparently it's crowded there, and they want to provide a place for their families. Well, the Fairacre people really don't want their view spoiled. They don't want this housing division to come in and disrupt their small village community. Some people are for it, some are against it, and so that's what's going on throughout this book. They are deciding whether or not that this is going to be allowed to happen. So this was really good. This is book 3 in the Fairacre series. There was a Miss Read Along going on during the second half of this year, hosted on Instagram, and this book was supposed to have been read in September, and then 2 other books for October and November. Then the 6th book in the series, which was the December read for the Miss Read Along, is Village Christmas by Miss Reed, book 6 in the Fairacre series. So what I ended up having to do, even though this was a series on my Stackmas tree, I ended up skipping the October and November books because I was behind, and I skipped on over to read Village Christmas because I really wanted to read it during the month of December. Turned out it was just fine. It was about some characters that I don't think are in the books already up to this point, but even if they were, it was just fine. It was a short little story, about 40 pages long, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was about these 2 older sisters, both single. Their names were Mary and Margaret, and their lifestyle was just very sweet. It describes their lifestyle, which just sounds idyllic. They had their routines that they followed, but then they had some new neighbors that moved in next door, and these neighbors did not necessarily do everything like these 2 older sisters thought things should be done. And at first they were a little judgmental, at least one of them, but then there came a point where the neighbors needed something, and the sisters were the first ones to lend a hand. And it was just a really sweet Christmas story that I thoroughly enjoyed. Now, I borrowed this copy from the library. You can see it's a very tiny little book, but I actually read it in a book that I own called Christmas at Fairacre, which has that story first and then two other Fairacre Christmas stories in the book as well. So I did not read the other two stories. I'm going to save those for the future. And now I'm going to go back, though, and read the two books that I skipped over because I hated to do it, but I really wanted to read the Christmas book during December. I don't know if they're going to continue with the Miss Read Along and read more of the Fairacre books in 2020. I hope that they are. I plan to definitely go ahead and read some more Miss Read books this year. Whether I continue with the Fairacre series or go back and pick up some of the Thrush Green books that I've not read, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I'm so glad that I have gotten into reading the Miss Read books finally. They're just so wonderful. Another series on my Stackmas tree that I read two books from is the Harmony series by Philip Gulley. Now, up here by my head, I've got some of the Philip Gulley books, and then these are the two that I actually read during the month of December. I read book 3, which is Signs and Wonders. This was hilarious. Just so funny. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this series yet, but definitely when I finish reading the series, I want to do a bigger discussion on the series and why I liked it and the parts about it that I didn't like and all of that. But this book was just really funny. So for this series as well, I skipped over books 4 and 5 because I wanted to read book 5.5, which is The Christmas Scrapbook by Philip Gulley. In this story, Sam Gardner, who is the Quaker minister in the series, wants to do something nice for his wife for Christmas. He doesn't have a good track record of Christmas gifts, and so he decides to make his wife a scrapbook. So he decides to enroll in a scrapbook class. So in order not to spoil the surprise, he makes up a fib and tells his wife that he's going to a men's group. Well, he's a minister. So I have a little bit of a problem. I have a lot of a problem with a minister lying. That was part of the fun of the story, but I just really hope that people don't think that this is okay Christian behavior, because it's really not. He could have come up with something that wasn't a lie. He could have just said to his wife, "Oh, this is a Christmas surprise," but then you wouldn't have the hilarity of this story. So the book was hilarious, even though I really hope that there aren't too many Christians that act the way some of these people do in this story. But it was really just a comedy of errors, and I thought it was just a lot of fun. Another Christmas-themed book that I listened to on audio, this is what I listened to while we were doing the first jigsaw puzzle. This is The Handmaid and the Carpenter by Elizabeth Berg. This is a reimagining of the Mary and Joseph story. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite Mary and Joseph story. I think I really like the Donna Van Leer version better, and I know there are others that I haven't read, but I did enjoy it to an extent. Of course, it's a reimagining, so there are embellishments and things added that are, of course, are not in the Bible. But there was a couple of things that are in the Bible that were changed a little bit, like with the shepherds and how that was all handled. So that part I didn't really like, but anyway, it was interesting, and I'm glad that I finally got to it. This is the third year that this has been on my Christmas TBR, and I finally realized that my library had it on CD, so I was able to listen to it. Another book I listened to on audio on Hoopla also finished a trilogy for me. It was Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. This was just a really good adventure series. Fantasy. I don't read a lot of fantasy, but this one I'm so glad that I did. I definitely want to continue reading more Robin Hobb books. I'm looking forward to the next series, which is a 4-book series called The Rainwell Chronicles, and this book sets you up for that because I'm almost positive that 2 of the characters from this book, they are going to the Rainwells at the end of this book, and so I think that that next series is going to follow them. Maybe not, I don't know, but at least now I understand a little bit more about what the Rainwells are and all of that. In this book we get to learn the mystery of the live ships and how they came to be. This whole trilogy I thought was just really good. Another book I listened to on audio for the Audible Escape Category Challenge. This was listed under the Victorian category, which is one of the categories that I picked for December. This is Just Ella by Margaret Peterson Haddix. So this is a middle grade book. It's a Cinderella story, and it's not a fantasy story. There's no magic involved in this. Ella describes exactly what happened to her in real terms, in realistic things, and she talks about how she doesn't understand why people think that all this magic was involved, because this is really how it happened. And I just thought it was really good. It got some bad reviews. There were some of my Goodreads friends that didn't necessarily love it or like it, but I thought it was fine. It had a different end to the story. It was different than your average Cinderella story. In fact, this story picks up when after the ball, after Cinderella has already been fitted for the glass slipper, after she's already moved to the castle, and it's what happens after that. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. There are at least 2 more books in the series, so I've got the next one checked out from my library. I have it on a playaway, which I haven't listened to a playaway in a few months, and so I'm excited about getting to it, and I thought this was really good. The other book that I listened to on the Audible Escape package was an Amish book. So I had another one picked for the Audible Escape package, and I had this one picked for the bingo, but I ended up just counting this for both. I did not get to the other book. So this is called The Amish Christmas Candle. It's 3 different novellas by 3 different authors: Kelly Long, Jennifer Beckstrand, and Lisa Jones Baker. I did not care for the first story at all. The second one was okay, but I didn't love it. The third one was really my favorite of the 3. This book overall, especially the first 2 stories, were a lot racier than I'm used to in an Amish book. They were a little more human, I suppose, a little more realistic, but that's still not what you expect from an Amish book. It wasn't your squeaky clean book that you expect. I've read at least 1 or 2 short stories by Kelly Long before, and I didn't remember them being quite of this nature. So I don't know, maybe she was trying something different, or maybe this is typical of her style. I don't know. There was just a lot more things that happened. There was a lot more, I don't want to say it was off color. It was just there was a little more innuendo in this one, and there were just things mentioned that I was kind of like, what? So anyway, the third one in the story, it was by Lisa Jones Baker. It was perfectly fine, and then the second one was kind of somewhere in the middle. So anyway, this is not my favorite Amish book. I think overall I rated the whole thing 3 stars. It wasn't horrible. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Another book that I read from my Stackmas tree is A Gathering Place by Thomas Kincaid and Catherine Spencer. This book looks like a chunker, but it's just a large print copy, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was really, really good. I rated it 5 stars. It had just more of the same community and family drama that we've gotten from Cape Light and Home Safe, and I definitely plan to continue the series. This is really just the epitome of the type of book that I want to read on my Goodreads group, Lizzie Faye's Comfy Corner. This is just my favorite kind of book. Very, very good, very inspirational and uplifting, but yet not without tragedy and heartache, and I just thought it was really, really good. And I read this in print. To my knowledge, these are not available on audio at all. And so it took me a little bit more time to read this. In fact, that's why it's taking me so long to get through the series, because I'm having to read them in print, but I'm definitely thoroughly enjoying them. So because I didn't get even close to being finished with my Cape Light stack on my Stackmas tree, I only got 2 read during this 3-month period. I decided to pick up a Thomas Kincaid book that I had on my shelf that's just a small coffee table book full of Thomas Kincaid paintings and various Christmassy quotes from a lot of different sources. It's called I'll Be Home for Christmas. I had read it before, but I read this on New Year's Eve just mainly because I wanted to sort of wrap up that Thomas Kincaid stack and read something Christmassy, since I didn't get to the main Christmas novels in the Cape Light series, and because I kind of wanted one more book for the year and for the month. And so I took this to work with me and read it, and it's just as beautiful as I remembered. It's got some delightful quotes from various books like Little Women and A Christmas Carol and various other books that I can't even remember right now. There's also some poetry and several beautiful Thomas Kincaid paintings. So I might make this a tradition to read every year at Christmas time. Another series that is also not on audio and I am enjoying in print is the Home to Heather Creek series by various authors. These are published by Guidepost. And book 4 is Homespun Harvest by Robert Elmer. I thought this was really good. This is about a family of grandparents who are raising their daughter's children because their daughter was killed in a car accident. Their youngest adult son lives with them and works on the farm. Well, he lives in an apartment over their barn. And then they have another adult son who's married with children that lives nearby. So it's a big extended family, and they have adventures and things that happen. And in this book, they are in the pie business. So in this story, the grandmother is asked to make pies and to start doing it as a business. She's making pies to sell to the local diner and special orders for the Thanksgiving holiday. And so there's just a lot of things happening with that and some other things that happen that come into play. And again, it's just a really good family drama and I'm really enjoying it. And then for the bingo prompt to read a book about a holiday that you don't celebrate, I read a book about Kwanzaa called Kwanzaa by Amy Robbins Jones, and I learned a lot. I also read a children's book about Kwanzaa last year that was more of a storybook, and this one was a nonfiction book that actually gave you a little more information and background about the holiday and each day of the 7-day celebration, and I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. A few other audiobooks that I listened to that I will have to show you pictures of. I listened to a book called How to Clean and Organize Your Home, Speed Cleaning, Decluttering, and Organizing by Emma Green. Now, I don't want to just rip this book apart because it was only about 50-something minutes long. But I think the title was a little bit misleading because you really can't describe how to do all those things in a 51-minute audiobook, for one thing. And for another thing, some of the things covered don't really have anything to do with cleaning and organizing your home. In fact, the very first topic was about setting up your guest room for guests and what all you should have in there and what all you should do. So in my mind, if someone's picking up a book about how to organize your home, the last thing you're worried about is setting up a guest room. You're not even going to let guests in your house if you need to read a book about cleaning and organizing your home. To an extent. I mean, I have a lot of cleaning to do and a lot of organizing, and I will let guests in my home, but you know what I'm saying? And then it just went on with a lot of different random things, which I think would have been better as maybe a magazine article instead of an audiobook. So I'm not mad at the author because she did have a few good ideas. They were just kind of varied and sundried. But the main problem with this book was the narrator. And again, I don't want to trash a narrator, but I had heard this guy one time before, and when I saw who was narrating, I thought, oh, I think this is that same guy. On Hoopla, the audiobook narrators are searchable, so you can look and search other books by the same narrator. And I started looking up some of his reviews because I just wanted to see, is it just me? And no, it's not just me. The narrator's name is Matt Montanez, and you know, I don't know what his story is, so I really don't want to be too critical. Maybe he started reading audiobooks as a way to improve his English. I don't know, because I'm almost positive that English is not his first language. I mean, of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's very distracting when he mispronounces words. Like, there were 2 words that stood out in this book, and one of them is not that big a deal, but the other one, it was just like, what? One word was varied instead of varied, which, you know, I can let that one slide. But then he said miscellaneous, and I was like, what? Oh my goodness. I know. I sweat the small stuff. I couldn't even get through that book. So, anyway, I just, I couldn't pay much attention to the book because the narrator was just so distracting. And, bless his heart, I really don't want to be hateful. But if you ever start to listen to an audiobook read by Matt Montanez, go ahead and listen to it if you can get it for free. Please don't pay money for it. Listen to it and see if you understand what I'm talking about. If you have access to Hoopla, look up his name and just listen to something, and you'll see what I mean. So anyway, it was not a book I would recommend to you at all. I've read a lot of organizing books, and this one just didn't really cut the mustard. There just wasn't any substance to it. But it was 51 minutes long, and it counts. It counts as one of my 290 books for this year, and one of my 28 books for this month. So, enough said. Then, right after that, I listened to another organizing book that I loved. It was by Peter Walsh, who is one of today's experts in decluttering. He used to be the organizer on a show called Clean Sweep, and I started watching him there. I think he's fantastic. I met him in person at an Orlando Home and Garden show one time, and more recently Peter Walsh has been on Oprah as the organizing consultant on Oprah. So he's written several books. I read one either in early 2019 or late 2018 and thoroughly enjoyed that one. So this one was just really good. It was called Let It Go, and just night and day difference from the first one that I listened to. So I was really glad that I listened to that. I got some good inspiration. And one of the books that I carried over from November was Don't Put My Shoes Away by Rebecca Marie Deroller. She's a friend of mine from our local book clubs, and she wrote her memoir of her heart transplant story. And I bought it on my Kindle, which is now lost. So I pulled it up on my computer, and I was able to listen to it while I was working on the jigsaw puzzle by using the text-to-voice feature on the Kindle app. And I really am so glad that I got to finish that book. I definitely want to read it again at some point and just actually sit down and read it when and if I ever find my Kindle or replace it. But for now, I listened to it, and I just thought it was so compelling. It was really just such a good story, and if you are interested in that, I would definitely recommend it. I will put a link down below. It's available on ebook, and I think it may be available in paperback. I'm not absolutely sure of that, but I will put a link down below if you want to look it up and possibly purchase it. It is just a really, really wonderful story. And then finally, I finished the devotional book that I have been reading on and off throughout the year. I started it in January, I believe, and put it down to pick up a couple of other devotional books during the year, and then timed it out where I would finish it by the end of the year. This is by Sarah Young, called Jesus Lives. Now, the one that most people are familiar with, her most popular devotional book, is Jesus Calling, which is a 365-day devotional book. This one only has 175 devotionals, which is why I was able to fit in a couple of other devotional books throughout the year. But this was given to me by a dear friend of mine who is a retired missionary from Africa, and she was reading it for the second time when I was at her house one day in 2018, and she gave it to me, and I said, "Are you sure? Because it looks like you're reading it right now." And she said, "No, I've read it already. I'm just reading it again." So I left her bookmark in it, and I'm going to go ahead and offer this back to her so that if she wants to continue rereading it, then she can. I think I like this one really better than Jesus Calling. It's written as if Jesus were talking, and she uses scripture to back up everything that is being said. She's not putting words in Jesus's mouth. She's actually using scripture references and embellishing that. And I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good devotional book. All right, so that is everything that I read or listened to during the month of December, with the exception of the Bible, which now I have finished the second year of 3 years of my 20 by 20 challenge, and I have been reading the Bible all the way through from Genesis all the way to Revelation. So in 2018, I started my 20 by 20 challenge, and my top book on the top stack, my stack of one was to read the Bible from beginning to end. And so during the first year, I read from Genesis through 2 Kings. And so this year, in 2019, I started in 1 Chronicles and I got through Lamentations. So on January 1st, I started in Ezekiel and I will continue all the way through to Revelations. And then I will be able to say that I have finally read the Bible all the way through, only for the second time in my life. So I was happy that I met my goal in my Bible reading this year, and I'm off to a good start in 2020. So the only other thing that we haven't really talked about in this video is the holiday book bingo that was hosted by Sarah from Amish Books, and I covered all of the challenges but one. So the first challenge was to read a book with red or green as the predominant color on the book. And so I am counting The Christmas Scrapbook by Philip Gulley as the red, and then I originally said I could count this as green, but I went back and I was watching her announcement video again, and she said she really wanted everything we counted for this challenge to be a holiday themed book. So instead of that, I believe I can count Village Christmas because I read it out of this edition, Christmas at Fair Acre, and green is definitely the predominant color on this cover. The second challenge was to read a book that you traditionally read during the holidays, and I don't have one particular book that I traditionally read, but as I said earlier, I do traditionally listen to an audiobook while I'm working a jigsaw puzzle. So the Christmas themed book that I listened to while I was working the first jigsaw puzzle with my husband and my daughter Katie is The Handmaid and the Carpenter by Elizabeth Berg. And incidentally, I was listening to it on a CD player, so they got to hear it too. I did mention that I might try to listen to a Debbie Maycomber book while I was working the jigsaw puzzle, and I did check one out from the library, but I have not gotten to it yet. So that will go on my January TBR. Since I've still got a lot more to do on the puzzle, I can still listen to quite a few more audiobooks while we're finishing up the puzzle. The next challenge was to read a book with lights on the cover. So I am counting The 12 Sleighs of Christmas. The next challenge is to read a book with an animal on the cover. So this could also count for that. But I'm counting the second book in that series, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, which has a cat on the cover and lights on the cover. So those could be interchangeable. And then the next one is to read a holiday anthology. So I'm counting The Amish Christmas Candle by Kelly Long, Jennifer Beckstrand, and Lisa Jones Baker. The next prompt is to read a book that's part of a series, and I'm going to count Hercule Poirot's Christmas by Agatha Christie. The one I didn't get to is to read a book with Santa on the cover. The one I had in mind was the next book in the Home to Heather Creek series, which has 2 ornaments hanging on the Christmas tree with Santa on them. It's called Patchwork Christmas by Kristen Eckhart, and I did read the first chapter, so if you want to count that at least I started that challenge, you could do that. But I went ahead, when I knew that I wasn't going to get it done, I took it back off my currently reading, put it back on want to read status, because I don't like things hanging over from one year to the next, and I will start it over so that I can start fresh on it this year. So that doesn't solve the problem of the fact that I didn't get that challenge done, and that really does bug me that I didn't get it finished, but I can't go back in time, and I have searched the covers of all of these books. There's nothing with a Santa hat. There's no Santas. Even Sarah said that a book that had antlers on the cover would count. There's no antlers. There is a snowman on this cover, which has branches for arms that look like antlers. We could count that. And there's also a fireplace with stockings hanging in the window of the house, so they're waiting for Santa. So this is the closest thing I could come to anything related to Santa, but still technically doesn't count. So anyway, we'll just have to let it go. And I know some of you are singing right now, aren't you? Okay, so the next to last one is to read a book about a holiday different from your own, and I read Kwanzaa by Amy Robbins Jones. Then the last one was to read a book with snow on the cover, and I listened to Murder in Her Stocking by G.A. McKevitt. So there you have it. All of the December challenges, everything I read, everything I listened to for the month of December, and it was a really good reading month. I'm amazed that I got all of this read and still managed to get through Christmas and everything that entails, but it was a lot of fun. I really am next year going to have to back off a little bit though, because I'll mention it more in my New Year goals and all of that, but I've got to find a better balance. I know that I focused too much on reading this past year, the past few years, and not enough on family and home and all of that. So at some point I've got to find the balance, and so that's one of my goals for the upcoming year. But anyway, I got pretty close to 300 for the year. I hit 290. I noticed that a few of my Goodreads friends did hit the 300 mark. Sarah from Amish Books made it to 325, which is amazing. I sort of had a secret goal to get to 300, and I didn't quite make it, but that's okay. I usually set my Goodreads goal at 150, and I'm happy about anything over and above that I can do. But this was the year, I think, that if I was going to make it to 300, it would have been this year. I don't know if I will ever attempt to get that close to 300 again, but we'll see. I don't know. I definitely have to shift my focus a little bit away from reading and onto some other things for the next year or two. But anyway, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still planning to be here on BookTube, still telling you about what I'm reading, and I am so appreciative of all of you who watch my videos and those of you who comment. I absolutely crave your comments. Thank you so much to all of you. Some of you are just such wonderful cheerleaders, and you guys may not know this, but words of affirmation is my love language. If you've ever read The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. So for those of you guys who say the wonderful things that you do, it really, really means a lot to me and helps fill up my love tank. So I love you all. Thank you so much. I hope you're having a wonderful beginning to the year 2020, and I will be back soon with more videos. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Read a good book, and God bless you.